Welcome, everybody. This is the regular Wednesday 3 o'clock Q&A. Alex is hosting today, and Gary, you're driving?
Yep.
All right, I'm going to start off with the welcoming and the housekeeping rules, and then I'm going to hand it off to Angela to give her announcements. So again, welcome everybody. This is the CALPADS Q&A. Today is June 22nd, and my name is Alex Manriquez. I'm a data analyst at CSIS supporting CALPADS, and as Angela mentioned, driving for us today is Gary Gerber. We ask that you please edit your name. If you go to the participant screen, hover over your name, click on more. Make sure you have your first, last name, and the LEA you're representing today. We just want to know who you are, who we're talking to. If we need to follow up with you, we know who you're representing. We ask that, well, the way that this works is that you write your question in the chat box, and we ask that you please number your questions Q1, Q2, Q3, etc., so that we can at least go through everyone's question 1, and then we'll circle back and answer question 2s and above as time allows. We are doing office hours on Mondays, but we are no longer doing them on Fridays. So if we don't get to your questions today, we may ask that you either put in a service desk ticket or that you hold off your question until next Monday. If your question today requires a lot of detail, is very specific to your district, or we need to dive into your data, this may not be the venue for you. We can't dive into your specific data here, so we may ask that you please open up a service desk ticket. In that same vein, if you already have a service desk ticket open, we ask that you please continue working with your service desk agent, because a lot of the times the tickets have a lot more information that we're going to be able to get here, and we don't want to muddy the waters. With that, I'm going to pass it off to Angela because I don't have any other announcements, and she does. So.
All right, thanks, Alex. Yes, so we did have a release go in yesterday. So the release notes, or excuse me, the active and known issues list is almost entirely up to date. I wanted to point out, so you'll see here at the top, the fix implemented, the most recent listed first. But there were 2 that are fix available but have not been updated yet. And one of them is the PTSD reports for EOI4. We have a fix for that. What happened though was that only about half of you got new revisions. So after the release yesterday, somebody went in and scheduled revisions for everybody, and we would have expected them to at least be completed by this morning, and they weren't. And you need a new revision in order for these 2 reports to start showing correctly. We have a fix for that that's going in tonight. So hopefully by tomorrow morning, everybody should have new revisions. And then the other one that is also in the same boat is 14.1. Is the student absenteeism reports are not showing correctly, and I think that we also have to wait for new revisions on that one. The other fix that's going in tonight should enable us to update the left-hand navigation with the links to course and incident. So this is production right now, and you obviously can't see it there. So hopefully by tomorrow morning, you should be able to get to that. I'll show you what it looks like in test here. So course data and incident data should be online tomorrow. And what else do I want to show you? Oh, what's coming next? The next release is Tuesday, and there will be more than what I have on my screen right now. It's just this is what is currently either in testing or has already been tested and closed. So this list will grow between now and next Tuesday. So on Monday's call, we should see a larger list. But I'll leave that up there. And that was the end of my announcements, Alex, if you want to start taking questions.
Sounds good. All right, so we're going to start off with Syria. Question 1 says, is the definition of chronic absenteeism still 10% or more of instructional days, or was that altered by the new chronic absenteeism formula?
I don't believe it was altered.
No, it's changed. It's a federal definition. So
it has not changed?
Correct. It's still 10%.
Okay.
Thank you. George says, can we get a walkthrough on how to modify the SDNR extract so that we don't get all of the new errors mentioned in the latest flash? So that's flash 224. You haven't seen it. highly, highly recommend that you read through it. The flash talks primarily about SCNR 0027 and how to avoid it because of the new way in which CalPADS is processing the operational keys, particularly in the SCNR file. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that I interpret it is the SCNR file can no longer have the same SSID in there twice when you're wanting to update when you're trying to update a primary key, or even if you're not. So basically, whenever you're exiting a student from one school and entering the student into another school, or within the same school, right? If you have an E150, CalPADS can't make that processing anymore. And so what it wants you to do is it wants you to get all of your exits in one file, submit that, post, and then do all of your enrollments in the other file. And that way you won't have the SSID in the same file twice and get that SCNR 27.
And we are working on videos, George. So I would say wait for our videos, because we'll do a walkthrough of how to separate the data out. But
And your
in
vendors
addition,
are working.
yeah,
vendors.
SIS vendors are also working so that you don't have to do that work. But they were given the information kind of late, so they need a little bit of time to get caught up and get that out to you all. So you may want to talk with your SIS vendors just to see when they're going to have a timeline of releasing it. And in the meanwhile, then we'll try to get our videos posted so that it can help you out.
They're posted on YouTube.
Oh, super.
Nice. Okay, moving on to Mary Masters, question 1. Can you review how we can get a jump on those errors that are inevitably going to appear from the update that is coming at the end of June? So those are the CDDs, certification data discrepancies. You can see what the CDDs are going to be by looking in the error list and filtering for, there's a column that says data discrepancy, filter on that so that it shows X. And then, yeah, so Gary's showing you on the screen right now.
So those are the possible.
Yeah, and then if you want to also look at the severity and filter for fatal, right? Because it's any that have data discrepancy with an X and then fatal as the severity.
But then you would have to check yourself to see if you have any data that violates the validation.
Right.
There's no other way to get ahead. Sorry. But I think we're soon going to be implementing it, so it won't be long for you guys all to see those dreaded data validations or data discrepancies.
Question 1 for Marcy. Just want to confirm that for work-based learning internships, we are required to report the total number of hours a student worked the internship in the current school year. What does it mean by external?
So yes, the answer is yes. The number of hours is in the current academic year. External basically means outside of the school day. So they go to school, they're off campus, they participate in the internship. So how many hours external to the instructional day?
Okay. Dana from Apple Valley, question 1. Can we use code 156 for 12th grade student with disability that are entering our adult ed program next school year? How about students that are currently in the adult ed program? These scenarios are only related to students with disabilities. Yes, you can. For students that are in 12th grade that are returning the next academic year, you can use 156. Or you could also exit the students with the completion code of 120, right, for the certificate of completion. That's also an option. But if your LEA decides that previously you would do a E155, now you will have to do an E156 for your 12th graders. Melissa, question 1. Can we download the SELA ODS extract now, or should we still wait? think they can, right?
Yep.
There's no
Not that we're
bug on
aware of. Good to go.
Cedric, question 1. Is Flash 157 the most recent guidance regarding summer initial LPAC testing?
Wow, that's an oldie.
Yeah.
That's like
No,
50 flashes ago.
No, I think there's was it 219?
That's the RFEP one.
Yeah,
Right.
but
It covered
No,
the L.
there's information in there. So it's further down. I think it has to do with summer testing. There it is, assessing students for LPAC during summer. Here we go.
Good memory. Linda, question 1. Is there a known issue with the self-contained courses CRSC file failing to post? Failing? I don't know about failing.
There's
Why
an
would you be?
IVR. There's 5953. It doesn't say it in the title, but I'm familiar with that one because the developer was asking questions about it.
Yeah, but it's a self-contained course. Why would you report course completion for that? It
Right.
doesn't make any sense.
Good point, Brandy. It was a trick question.
Dave's voice prompted that response because I knew he was getting ready to say that. He's like, what's going on here?
So don't report your self-contained for EOI 1.
So the bug is on middle school self-contained classes.
But even middle
Middle
school,
school
you're supposed to report
Departmental.
departmentalized, or you don't report
Yeah.
at all.
Right.
All right. Kelly from Coronado says, how would I exit a senior student who actually graduated last semester from the UK, but enrolled with us for the spring semester just to go to school? She will not be 18 until July, so cannot use 400.
Well, she graduated. Why would she have been enrolled? That's interesting. So if she graduated secondary school.
The UK though, and just came to the US just to go to school.
Yeah.
For the experience.
I'm not even sure why you would have enrolled that student. You know, she's technically already met the requirements of secondary education, even though it's from another country, unless she needed it. I mean, if you're not going to issue her a diploma, then I guess.
Is she coming back? Because the other thing is you just say that she transferred back out of the US, right? Call it done.
Yeah, I mean,
potentially she could be a drug.
The student does not belong in the cohort. That's the point. They don't belong in your cohort to begin with, because my theory is you shouldn't have enrolled her anyway. She already graduated high school.
And when you do transfer out of the US, it takes them out of the cohort, right?
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
But the bigger question is, why did you add them to your? Don't do it again.
All right. Shelly from Fallbrook, question 1 says, what is better for ending students that are grade 12 that we are not sure are coming back? Completer 230 liking credits 360, or should we just roll them and no show if they don't come back? I think both scenarios would be considered a dropout. Thank you. I think the question is, are you expecting them, right? You're not sure if they're going to come back, but should they?
So they haven't yet completed, right? They're grade 12. And so they're eligible to come back, but you don't know if they are. So you have to do the E156 until you find out otherwise. And then if they don't come back, what happened to them? And then use that exit code. Like, did they go to adult ed or where did they go?
Nancy, question 1. I'm getting the STAS 0305 error for students that are short-term enrollment in our court school. I couldn't find this error in the known issues. Anyone else having this issue? I don't know if that's in our known
Is it
issues.
an IVR 0305?
Mhm.
Yeah, what is 05?
STAS.
Invalid expected attendance days.
Now, what I do know is that there were some SIS vendors that were including some counts in the days expected. Oh no, wait, that's a different one.
So one, you may not have a valid error list or a current one because it's in the error list.
But she says she couldn't find it in the known issues.
Hmm.
So
I can't remember. Are you
Short-term.
supposed to report in attendance for short term?
I think so. Right, Brandy? Don't we do chronic absenteeism for short term as well?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they have to be enrolled a certain amount of days in order for them to count in the chronic absenteeism calculation. But,
And do we get a weird calculation if they haven't been exited and you use that May 15th day?
yeah, I mean, that's the only thing that I can think of is if the student hasn't been exited yet, it's having problems calculating. I know that if you haven't submitted up the exit code, then that may be why this is happening.
We should probably get a ticket, Nancy. It's
Yeah.
the SSID and
the job ID.
yeah.
Okay. Rebecca from Santa Rosa says, we love you guys. You always do a great job. Thank you, Rebecca. She says, I uploaded my SENR. I have 117 graduates, small school, and 2 students came back with SENR 0175, student exit reason code, invalid exit reason code. These 2 students have the same information as everyone else. I reviewed the data and didn't see anything out of the ordinary. Is this a known issue?
I don't recall 175 as a known issue.
It just validates the E23100.
I think this is another ticket with
Yeah,
the job
you'd have
ID
to-
and the
SSIDs.
and the SSIDs. All right. Angela from Bonita. I believe this was brought up before, but my apologies, I do not recall the answer. There are CCEs from prior years showing up in my anomalies management sidebar. Should LEAs attempt to address those or leave them for now? Are these older ones affecting our CCE percentage of certification?
61, 68, Gary. So it is a known issue. And I have good news. It looks like it got handed off to the tester and is expected to go in on Tuesday's release. So you shouldn't have
But-
those CCEs detected on those really old enrollment records.
End of year doesn't do a check on percentage of anomalies. It's just
Correct.
fall one that does it at this point. So you'll be okay for EOI.
Albert, I've written down your question too, and we'll circle back. Mara from San Diego, question 1. I tried attending a bridge training on my personal laptop this morning because my work computer was down. I entered the meeting ID and passcode, but it said that it was incorrect. They weren't entered incorrectly though. In the past, I was able to use my personal laptop for bridge trainings using the meeting ID/passcode and not logging into bridge. Did this policy security change recently? If so, could it be changed back so that I can use the meeting ID and passcode on any device without having to log into bridge?
Not aware that anything changed.
If it worked in other devices, then it could be something to that laptop.
So Mara, if you really want us to troubleshoot this, Marshall's going to be gone soon, but I'd love to have him work with you on it.
Yeah, it was probably something local. I don't think any of the policies has changed.
Well, the meeting ID and all the access information comes from Zoom, not Bridge. So
Right.
the idea
Right.
that
Yeah, you might want
Clicked
to
on the
change,
link that was a
Yeah.
bridge link.
but using the ID, it should have still worked as long as you use the correct email address. The same.
So you
email
guys
as
can
the
take this
Bridge.
offline, right, Marshall?
Yes.
Can you contact Mara?
Alrighty, moving on to Rebecca from Lancaster. Question 1, is it automatic when a district that is Title I district-wide acquires a new school that it automatically receives Title I Part A basic targeted funding for the first 2 years, therefore requiring us to submit a 122 program for the eligible students for the first 2 years?
So I do recall that new Title I schools, when they initially start the program, are generally required to run a targeted program. So I want to say that that's probably accurate, yes. But the other thing, Rebecca, is that you want to check with your CARS coordinator, because it also requires that the school be identified as a school-wide program in the school-wide authorization form in the January certification of CARS. So it just may be that somebody didn't do that. And if that's the case, you can modify that in CARS and up until, August 25th, if need be. So I would check with your CARS coordinator and see if it's even eligible to identify as authorized for a school-wide program in CARS.
Pam from El Cajon. Are known issues 5970 and 5953 for CRCS 0468 the same problem or different? And if different, can you explain the difference?
They are slightly different. One was the one that's fixed implemented was triggering just on valid combinations left and right. It was pretty global. The one that's still outstanding is just the one triggering on State Course Code 1000. And as Brandy pointed out, we really shouldn't be submitting course completion data for self-contained classes anyway. So if you are getting that on a self-contained class, see if you can omit those records from your file.
Wendy, question 1, when will SAS report be available?
So should be available right now for about half of you. If you got a new revision last night, should be there. If not, it'll be there in the morning. And I think you're referring to 14.1. It was showing all zeros and it should have data now. Or as long as you have a new revision, I believe is what they told me.
Okay, Shelly from Hacienda La Puente says, I put in a ticket and Nate said I should ask this here to see if Brandy has input. Can students that are on the diploma track report 60 or 65 work-based learning type? The work-based learning data population PowerPoint slide 12 says it applies to students who do not earn a standard high school diploma.
I can add to that, Brandy. The documentation specifically says those are the transition work-based learning, that it's for those with the special education certificate. And the question is it solely for those, or can a special education student who graduates still have those work-based learning reported? And there's no validations against it. We're just wondering whether it show up on the dashboard.
Right. So you can report them, but for purposes of counting towards measures of preparedness, they will only use those 2 measures for students who exit with a certificate of completion. And they have to actually meet both of those measures in order to be considered prepared. So you can submit it, but they're only going to use it for students who exit with a certificate of completion.
You should update our slide, Nate. Add that as a note.
And not only for certificate of completion and no regular high school graduate? Or in addition to?
Say that one more time.
To be used as a measure, would that apply to just those with a certificate of completion, or certificate of a completion or a high school graduate?
No, only a certificate. So essentially, the reason they're doing this is specifically for students with disabilities that are not on the diploma track. So if you have a diploma, high school diploma, you are on a diploma track. So they're trying to reward districts for the things they're doing for kids who probably are not on a diploma track. So it only applies to those with a certificate of completion.
Okay, Angela, I have your question 2 and we'll circle back. Anita, question 1. I have a student on my ACGR report that just completed her 11th grade year and E155 as the exit code, but shows as a dropout in the cohort category. How do I fix this? I would like to see the student's enrollment. I'm wondering what their membership year is, and that would determine what exit code is triggering that dropout. So Anita, if you could put in a ticket, and you can put me, attention Alex, on the ticket, and we can look at that specific student. Sue Johnson from Shasta COE, question 1. I thought the SPED 0434 problem 6095 was going to be fixed this week. Has that changed? Thank you.
I believe it was. I think I didn't update that one because the implementation date wasn't populated. So I wanted to follow up with the team. Sue, if you have uploaded a SPED file since yesterday afternoon and you're still getting that error, could you put in a ticket for us and let us know? You can ask for Angela.
Judy from Fresno COE, question 1. Good afternoon. We submitted an amendment transaction for a student that was shortly enrolled with us. An LEA where the student was enrolled before us has reached out with a SPED 0539 asking that we delete our amendment so they can submit an annual review transaction held before our amendment. Our amendment would now be out of sequence. How do you suggest we proceed to record both of our transactions? I hope this makes sense. Well, if you were to delete your, because if I can envision this, the transactions of the SPED records, your amendment was associated with an older plan review. And so if you were to delete your amendment from CalPADS, they were then or will be able to submit their plan review with whatever date they held their meeting. At that point, when you submit your amendment, you would submit your amendment with that latest plan review that the previous LEA just recently submitted. And so that way it wouldn't be out of sequence. And Judy, if I'm maybe not understanding correctly, or you think it still would be out of sequence, then let me know. Or if you submit a ticket and say attention Alex, I can look into that for you.
But your explanation does make sense. Like she amended the plan that was there before, but it wasn't the most recent plan.
Yeah.
So.
Linda, I have your question 2, and Alyssa, I have your question 2. Kathy Kelly from Aries. FYI, Aries will be releasing an update today with the SCNR changes. Documentation will be provided with details. Hooray.
Hey, thank you, Aries.
Yeah. Marshall at the 310 timestamps that posted a link to troubleshooting tips. And this is a link to one of our CSIS YouTube videos. Jennifer says, great news, Kathy. May from Glendale, question 1. Does the Tom's Nightly process include weekends and holidays?
Oh my gosh, that's a good question. Why don't I know this? I believe we send the file every night. I don't believe that Tom's processes over the weekends, though. In fact, I'm sure we send the file every night. They just don't process them over the weekends and definitely on over holidays.
At the 311 timestamp, Nathan posted a link to the YouTube playlist related to the information in Flash 224 on how to separate exits and enrollments. Thanks, Nate. Sherry from Kingsburg. Today, the private pre-release of new teaching assignment monitoring outcome for the dashboard came out. Can you review the differences between the Fed and state reporting, and so why there will be more reported out of field assignments and use of the generic 9, etc.? Some information was mentioned in Flash 201.
So the data reporting office has been getting lots of these questions, but one of the things that they asked me to clarify with folks is that, and there is a footnote on the reporting page. So when you pull up your preview, if you look at the footnotes, it basically has a line that says educators without a statewide educator ID were not included in these numbers. So many of you may think that your seeds of all 9s resulted in misassignments and are included in those percentages, but unfortunately, but from what I was told today, they do not include the seeds of all minds. But with respect to the differences between what counts as appropriately assigned for the state versus federal, what I would urge you to do, Sherry, is to take a look at the assignment monitoring training that's posted on the CSIS website. There are several slides specifically that outline what's considered a misassignment at the state level versus the federal level. And there's a few slides on that. So I would urge you to take a look at that. But summarizing it, any teacher with a local assignment option, with the exception of Title 5 8005B, any teacher with a local assignment option at the federal level is considered out of field. Okay, so what that means is a lot of your alternative schools where you have teachers teaching on the 44865 local assignment option, at the federal level, those are considered out of field. But at the state level, they're appropriately assigned. So, I mean, I'm just summarizing and paraphrasing, but it does outline that in the assignment monitoring training. There are a few slides, I believe, towards the end.
Okay. Marcy, I wrote down your question 2. We'll circle back. Kay from Torrance Unified, question 1. Is the exit code of E125 prior special ed completer appropriate for those special ed students in the transition program who age out? I seem to remember being told to use this code so that these students are not included in the 4-year cohort.
So you can only use E125 if the prior exit code is E120 or is completion status of 120, I believe. I think we have a validation versus that. So, but yes, it would be appropriate. If they've been reported as a student that exited with a certificate of completion in their initial cohort year, and then they stayed on for transition services and are being exited because they're aging out, E125 is appropriate.
Okay. Shelley, I jotted down your question 2. We'll circle back. Rebecca, question 1. Preview teacher data was released today, woohoo. As CALPADS peeps, what would you recommend we take a look at, if at all? We can't really compare the data to Fall 2 reports. Thank you.
Should the curriculum people be looking at it, or your assignment monitoring people? I don't know if data coordinators are necessarily the ones that should be looking at it.
Oh gosh. So Rebecca, the CalSAS reports, your HR people would have been the individuals that determined whether or not a teacher was appropriately assigned. So that's essentially where it starts. But then there's a whole series of manipulations that were done to the data from that state assignment monitoring process. I don't know that there's anything that you can validate because they did not send a list of the teachers. There's not a list of individual teachers. So I tell you what, Rebecca, just send in a ticket with my name on it, and I can try and get some guidance from DRO on how these should be reviewed, because I agree with you. They probably should have come up with some sort of plan for that.
Okay. And then Kelly is following up on the UK student, says, should we just not report her? Okay, out of US, good question. Just found out today that she was registered. So. Okay, moving on to Elsa from Eastside Union. Question 1. Discovered today that my discipline files were not behaving like full replacement files. Is this a known issue?
Yeah, so Gary, do you have that up on your screen? It's actually STAS that we've logged, but I do have 2 more tickets in my queue that I haven't acted on. So definitely we've confirmed that STAS is not behaving as a full replacement file, but in my queue, I also have one for SIRS and SOF, I believe, and then also course completion. So I don't know if I need to check with the developer and see if he wants that all in one ticket or discrete tickets. But yes, we think that full replacement is misbehaving.
Okay, Rebecca, I have noted your question 2. Laura is talking to Shelley. Shelley's responding to Laura. Carol from Menlo Park, question 1. I might have missed you already saying this, but how often should we expect revisions? We're still sitting at 12:43 a.m. Should we be getting them more often?
Well, at least every 24 hours at minimum, I would say. Post redesign didn't really address revisioning, so we weren't expecting miracles to happen with that process. But at least within 24 hours, you should be getting a new one. And like I said, that after the deployment last night, they found that some LEs were getting stuck in revisions, and so not everybody got one last night. They have a fix for that going in this afternoon, and so hopefully everybody should have a new one by tomorrow morning.
Kim Gavin, on Monday I asked, there were 2 amendments to an IEP, one in April and one in May. The May amendment is posted in CALPADS. Does it matter the order in which the amendments are uploaded into CALPADS? Meaning, can we just go ahead and upload the amendment from April, even though the May one is already there? Or since the amendment dated May would replace anything on the April amendment, do we have to upload both? Angela said she thought we could just go ahead and upload the April amendment. We did it and it worked. This caused a wondering. SPED 0538, the error we were getting, seems to indicate we shouldn't have been able to upload amendments out of order. We are glad it did, just didn't want to send a not out to everyone that we can do this if it's a one-time thing.
A note out, I think is what she was trying to say.
Got it. So SPED 0538 is looking that amendment dates that you're submitting do not fall between the dates of another record. So
That's an input validation. It's not a data discrepancy, so we will stop it. The file will get rejected if you violate 538.
But isn't it also based on which LEA is sending it up? If it's the same LEA, is it going to, and it's just a subsequent amendment? Because they can insert a record.
I think it does cross LEAs, Brandy. But I think if I remember your scenario, Kim, from Monday, I think you weren't inserting a record between 2 existing SPED records. You were backfilling one that was missing, right? And so the kid only had one SPED record. I want to say it was like April or something, right? And then, oh yeah, you have got your dates in here, April, even though the May one was already there. So the May one was there and there weren't any others. And then you were able to submit your April one. If there had been one from like January, I don't think you would have been able to get that April one in there. I think that would have triggered the 538. Is that right, Alex or Brandy?
Yes.
So don't send that note out.
Okay, Shelley is talking to Laura. Shelley, I have, this is another Shelley. I wrote down your question 3. And Mary Masters is saying, regarding the bridge issue, I have to reset my password every time lately. Odd things. Roger from Fairfield, question 1. Hola, what's the latest on accented characters being accepted in the sims? Gracias.
Yeah, I gave an update on Monday, Roger. I thought you were on, but maybe you dropped off. But I had you in mind when I gave the update because it's unfortunately not going to be fixed anytime soon, not like within the next week or 2. We thought it was, and then it kind of made its way back up to leadership at CDE. And so Glenn Miller wants to evaluate what characters should be allowed. But right now it's not even accepting just basic things like tildes and umlauts. So pause on that fix, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
George, I have your question 2. And moving on to Sean, question 1. What does Martha mean by Marshall will be gone soon? I have several items that I just haven't emailed yet. Do I need to send these now?
What I mean is Marshall's going on a well-deserved vacation, a lengthy one, so he will be with us when he returns. And if you send in a ticket, anybody that is available at the time can respond to your ticket. So when he goes on vacation, don't send email to him directly, otherwise it's gonna sit for a few weeks.
I did respond to that. That was a personal message.
Thank you, Marshall.
No problem.
Lori from Altaloma, question 1. I joined late, so I apologize if this was already addressed. I'm still not seeing the student discipline links in OM. Was this pushed to next week?
Should be put in tonight, Lori, if all goes as planned. When you come in the morning, those links on the left-hand nav should be available. So student or course section and incident should be listed there.
Sherry from Sonoma, SELPA. Question 1. Is sequential order still required for SPED upload since the system improvements? Sequential in the sense that your dates can't overlap existing records, right? So like the SPED 0538 is SPED 0539. In that sense, CalPADS wants the records to be submitted or tries it to make it so that the records are submitted sequentially. But in terms of posting your files, you can post your SSRVs before you post your SPED. So in that sense, it doesn't require that to be sequential. Cindy, question 1. I have a Cert 128 for an NPS student and have an exempt status for the student. Has this changed? NPS has always had an exempt status in previous years. Is there a known issue on Cert 128? No.
It's that one.
Okay.
So it's likely a bug, Cindy,
Yeah.
triggering incorrectly.
If you could submit a ticket, Cindy, with the SSID, we can take a look, confirm.
But would that necessarily be related directly to that error? Because the error basically said there was no student information, but if she knows who the student is, and she's
Yeah,
getting
we're
this error,
saying it's something else that's not related to that one.
Got it.
So we'd want a new ticket to investigate.
Sue says, thank you, Angela, will do. Christina from Tulare COE says, should we be able to use E130 for any infants with an enrollment status as 50 non-ADA? CalPADS returns a validation error indicating that E130 is invalid for a non-ADA enrollment status.
Well, because the non-ADA there's a non-secondary, non-primary enrollment exit. That's what you got to use, unfortunately.
170?
That's for
I believe.
secondary though.
Yeah. Well, this is any non-primary enrollment. It's for secondary and non-ADA. You have to use E170.
Okay, Fabiola, question 1. Hello, did I understand correctly that if we do not have a 14.1 file yet, we can expect one tomorrow?
Report, the 14.1 report got fixed yesterday, but not everybody got a new revision. So if you have a revision dated after June 21st, you should be able to render your 14.1 with data, assuming you've posted that information.
May I have your question 2? So we'll circle back. Dominic from Fresno SELPA messaged me directly regarding Judy's question on that SPED 0539 from the other district, where it would be out of sequence because her amendment was in the prior SPED plan review. He says that the transaction would be tied to the original plan and have a different error. So SACE can edit the transaction to tie it to the new annual plan review from the other LEA. So Judy, hope that makes sense to you because you're avid SACE user, I believe, if I remember correctly. So you may have to reach out to SACE support to help you with that. Natasha from Escondido says, wow, Aries, hoping PowerSchool follows soon behind you.
So from what I understand, Natasha, by the way, Stephanie from PowerSchool did say that they're testing the new process and they hope to release it by the 28th. if testing goes okay.
Awesome. Jason from Steel Canyon, question 1. If we have a college instructor from our local community college come on our campus to teach a course, would the school of record be our school or the local community college? And then it says, never mind, I have my answer. So, all right, cool. Marshall posted a link at the 3:36 timestamp. The 21-22 CALPADS Fall 2 CALSIS training for assignment monitoring. And that is at the 3:36 timestamp. Mary Master says, we all would like to know about the teacher data review process when you get it. Kyron posted the reference to replacement files with operational keys. The link is at the 3:37 timestamp.
Can we go back to Mary real quick? So
Yes.
the announcement that went out, CSIS doesn't support the data quest. And so in that announcement that went out, they did announce that the data reporting office at CDE will be hosting some office hours in the fall, as well as an email address to the data reporting office if you have specific questions.
Elsa from Eastside says, sync was definitely not replacing.
Okay, I have a hunch it's all of them, Elsa, and I'm hoping it's a universal fix.
Marcy says, at Brandy, can you let us all know when you find out regarding what we can look at to check accuracy, if anything, regarding the preview of teacher data? I can't make heads or tails out of how they made the category determinations for our school.
Yeah, I will let them know that we were getting lots of chatter about this. I'm sure they've been getting emails as well. So I will, I'll see what I can do.
Yep. Rebecca, I have your question too. And Lori says, during fall 2, there were issues with the CRSE not acting as a full replacement file. Did I just hear that is an issue again for EOY? This was a significant issue for fall 2 data processing. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's definitely not working correctly for STAS and probably all of the incident files and course completion. I just haven't gotten to those tickets in my queue just yet, but I think they're all related. And I agree, yeah, that's a big problem if they're not working. So we'll push to get those fixed as soon as possible.
Laura's talking to Shelly. Kyron at the 3:41 timestamp saying the syncs are soft, uses the operational keys of school of attendance, academic year ID, incident local ID. I think a record will not be overridden if it does not see a matching value for all 3 keys. Lori's question 2 I've written down, so we'll circle back. Jan from Aries at 3:43 says, regarding the accented characters being rejected, the minimum that should happen is that the ones that were allowed in the legacy system should be allowed now.
Agreed, and I think that's Glenn's position as well. So he just needed to take it back to the senior development team.
Adam, question 1 says, end of year 3, cert 149. I have a few students with an exit code of T165. Incidents occurred off campus and students transferred to community day schools, but students were not suspended or expelled by our sites. Says a CSIS record needs to be submitted. What information should be loaded? Cert 149, missing expulsion or suspension.
It's a
Missing
warning.
a result record.
Well, remember that you don't have to be suspended or expelled. You could have done something else.
It's a warning because you exited the student with the discipline exit code of T165. And so it's looking for 200 or 100, but it's not fatal specifically, or it shouldn't be fatal. I don't know that it's not, but it shouldn't be fatal specifically because of what Brandy said. There's other reasons.
Thanks, Nate. Eva is talking to Mary. Judy says it definitely does. Thank you both. So thanks, Dominic, for jumping in there. Natasha at Brandy says, thanks for that PS update. Rachel Swan, can you repeat the Power School update?
Yeah, so we reached out to Power School this morning, and apparently they they're in the middle of testing changes to the SENR files, and they're hoping to get that in the June 28th release if all goes well with testing.
Shanna from Simi Valley, question 1. Where can I find documentation on why special education preschool needs to be its own school type for reporting purposes? I don't know that it does.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't necessarily. It just depends on how you have special education preschool configured within your LEA. So if those preschool students actually are on a campus that typically they would matriculate into kindergarten at, then you don't need a special education preschool. They do allow LEAs to obtain special education preschool school codes where there is a district-wide special education preschool program. And so they have traditionally allowed LEAs to do that, but it's not, you don't have to do that.
Cedric, I've written down your question 2, and moving on to Sabrina, question 1. I have CERT 128 errors for my MPS students, missing absence summary data for students. Students are marked Y with exemption. So that was what, I can't remember now who was mentioning earlier. So
Yeah, we think
maybe
it
a
might be a
bug.
defect, yeah.
So ticket, Sabrina, with the SSID, and whoever we get to first will be the bug to rewrite it. All right, we're going to circle back. We have about 5 minutes left before 4 o'clock, and we're going to start with question 2s and above at the 3:05 timestamp with Albert. From West Covina asks, will snapshots for our EOY data improve from being daily to every couple of hours?
I think I kind of answered that a little bit earlier. The revisioning processing was not part of the post redesign work that we did for performance enhancements. So ideally, we would like to see at least a few a day, but right now it seems to be around 24 hours that we're seeing them. So that's what we know right now.
Angela from Bonita Unified, question 2 at 3:07. For known issue 6193 regarding CERT 145, if an N470 student has a 100 IEP record, is this part of the known issue, or is the CERT 145 error being triggered correctly?
And CERT 145, is that a private school thing?
Yeah, triggers on no N470 no show at private school.
I think that's a bug.
It is, yeah, 6193. But she's asking if it's part of the known issue.
But if the student is in a private school and they have an IEP record, then CERT 145 should trigger, that should be a correct trigger, because if the student is enrolled in a private school, then CalPADS is expecting a 200 plan type or a non-active SPED plan, right? 700, 800, or pending. Essentially not a 100 IEP plan.
That is correct, Alex.
Oh,
I
hey,
agree
Joe.
with you.
And so I would double check whether the plan type is correct for that student, or perhaps if there is an IEP, then perhaps it's the enrollment that needs to be updated. And if you would like us to take a look at that, you can submit a ticket with the SSID, and we can confirm if it's a known issue or if it is an actual correct error.
Seems like I got that ticket.
Okay. Linda at 3:08. Question 2. Hopefully our SIS vendor Aries will figure out how to separate that our SCNR 27. Hope I have that correct. And yes, apparently Kelly from Aries confirmed that they are going to have the new processing for SCNR in their next release. Nalissa, question 2 right below that says, for students with enrollment status 50, what exit date do we use at the end of the year? I tried E155 and got an error. Right, so the exit reason should be an E170. The date could be whatever the last day of school was. Moving on to Marcy at 3:12. says clarifying question to question 1. So we don't count internship hours that students work within the school day hours, only those external to it.
Correct.
Shelley, question 2 at 313 says, I'm getting Cert 128 error for my district level enrollments. Students not actually attending, but either being tested for or receiving SPED services. Should these records be marked exempt? Yeah. So students that are enrolled at your district level that are being evaluated, if they are being evaluated for services next year, then you would want to no-show them for this current academic year so that they don't trigger that cert error for you.
I think a ticket should be sent in because the staff should only trigger on K in through 12. And typically those students that are district level would be enrolled easily with a primary enrollment. And so the only district level enrollment is usually when they're younger, when they're maybe preschool.
Correct.
Except that a lot of folks did it for independent study last year. That's the only exception, but
Still would submit a status.
yeah.
Shelley, if you wouldn't mind putting in a ticket for that one to say attention, Alex, and I can take a look at those IDs. I'm going to have a lot of tickets after this. Question 2 at 317. Flash, oh, this is from Rebecca, Fresno COE. Flash 224 states, the CD is confirming whether the changes made to how key fields on the SCNR are updated in CalPADS apply to the other transactional files, like SPRG, CELA, and SPED. The CDE will provide an update as soon as it is available. Does this mean that SPRG, CELA, and SPED files may have the same issues with submitting more than one record for a student in one file?
Summer is on. Summer, do you have anything you want to say about that one? You know, you've been working with the developer team on that.
Is she able to unmute?
Yeah, I am. Not right now. I don't have anything.
So a subsequent flash will have that.
I think so.
It's to be determined.
Yeah.
Stay tuned, Rebecca.
Summer.
It is past 4. Can go on until someone stops me.
What timestamp are you at right now, Alex?
At 3:21.
I say get through all the Q2s that are up until 4 o'clock.
Okay. So 3:21 timestamp from Shelley. Question 3 says, I still don't have anything listed in the CCE page. If it is accurate, that is great, but normally I do have them.
You probably do have some, Shelley. So what we found is that it's timing out for some of the larger LEAs. And so I've been occasionally successful getting them to load and other times not. And so we do have a fix for that going in on Tuesday. So if you could please try it again sometime after tomorrow or Tuesday around lunchtime. And there is a known issue for that too, if Gary has that up or not.
Yeah. PM 6179. George at 3:24 timestamp. Question 2. When will hyphens be allowed again? We students with their legal last name with hyphens. And that's the one that's on pause, right, Angela?
Right, that's IVR, is it 9? Right, and so we got excited there for a minute. We thought we had a fix coming, and then our hopes were dashed. So don't change anything in your SIS right now. We're hopeful that we'll get to a point where we will allow them, but it might be taking a little bit longer than we had expected.
At 3:30 timestamp, May from Glendale says, Flash 219 has a bullet of ELAS start date of the current date under the ELAS testing during the summer. Can we have an earlier date of July 1st, 2022 for students testing with a date later than July 1 through August? It worked for us in past years.
Current date. So current date in that context means the date that you're posting the ELAS record, the TBD record. So if you've already pre-enrolled the student, their enrollment records in August, say you can use June 22nd for your ELAS TBD record if you're posting it today.
Right. I mean, essentially all that means is during the months of July and August, so beginning July 1st, you can start submitting up TBD records where that ELAS start date does not overlap your enrollment, because what you're doing is you're submitting up a pre-enrollment for that student. So, but I believe the ELAS start date has to be on or after July 1st.
It's June, July, August, Brandy. That's the GER 5 on the CELA, Gary, if you want to pull that up. So as long as it's in June, July, or August, I believe we'll accept it.
Are you sure that's not for SPED?
No, I'm not sure about anything in these days. Brandy.
Yeah, so pull up CELA, GER 5 for the CELA.
Oh, you know what? You're right. I might be mixing it up. You're right.
Yeah, I think it's only in July and August.
Because you want the TBD in the new academic year, the CELA record in the new academic year, but it can be before their enrollment.
It doesn't even start till July 1st. So it's going to find CELA. There it is. Okay, let's see.
It's so little, can hardly read it.
Yeah, unfortunately, this one doesn't have the detail we need. It's actually in the internal.
The business rules.
and I believe it is July and August, but I can look.
Yeah, I definitely was mixing it up with the SPED.
Validation. All right. Almost positive.
Yeah, there it is.
July 1 through August.
Yeah, July and August.
You're right, Brandy.
You know why? The only reason I know that is because I was saying what you guys were saying for a really long time.
That's probably where it's embedded in my brain, Brandy.
Yeah. And then I actually looked at the validation. It is July and August.
But I also feel like I just helped somebody with that, and we were able to successfully post it with a June date.
Well, you can post the TBD record with a June date, right? You can do that, but that student probably had an open enrollment at the time, and if they didn't, then it's not following what is documented. But because, and the other thing, folks, is remember that initial LPAC testing doesn't even start until July 5th, right? So theoretically, that TBD shouldn't be in the prior year.
Okay. At the 3:39 timestamp, Rebecca from Lancaster has question 2, says, so what is the SAS actually doing incorrectly regarding known issue 6195? Does it mean we will be expecting bogus SAS errors because students will actually be missing their SAS record when really it was uploaded and posted? Known issue 6195.
I think it's keeping other records in there when it should have cleared everything out, right?
Right. Yeah. The user I was helping last year accidentally posted 21-22 SAS records. I think she meant to be 2021, and so it kind of surfaced now. These kids are now exited, so she's got over 600 that should have SAS records in CALPADS for 21-22 that should not, and so we don't want to have her have to go delete all those individually. You know, the full replacement should have just overwritten them.
Lori, question 2 at 3:42 timestamp says, in light of the fact that many fixes seem to be causing new and interesting issues pretty regularly, is there a plan to step up the frequency of releases more often than once a week?
Oh, opposite. I think we'd like to get back to a point where we are doing it every other week. So right now it's pretty hectic for the dev and test team, the once a week.
And partly because it's not just the defects that they're working on. You have to realize we're trying to roll out some new functionality, the certification data discrepancies that you guys haven't seen yet. And so the team split, some are working on that and some are working on all of the defects. So keeps them very busy. If we had more money, maybe we could get more resources. But just like you guys, resources are tight.
And this is the last question too I had noted, was from Cedric at 3:51. Timestamp says, just wanted to know if Martha was able to get some information on where the DRO is regarding the SED discrepancy between DataQuest and Fall 1.
Yes, I got some feedback and I gave Cedric the answer. And report 1.1 has a social economically disadvantaged count, and that report from Fall 1, that total doesn't match what's in DataQuest, and they use different business rules. And so the question is, which one's going to change to match the other? And that's what they're still discussing. So they know that they don't match, and the question is, how should they match and which one will give? So they use different business rules on defining the social economically disadvantaged.
Do we take a couple more? So Mary Masters had a last question at 4 o'clock. Then before that, Stephanie has one more. So take silence as a yes.
Yeah, let's cut it off at Mary.
Yeah. Okay. So Stephanie from Martinez, question 1 says, I have STAS 0588 errors, but the CalPADS help page is unavailable. That's true. So the user manual, or handy dandy user manual, is under maintenance right now because of the new updates from the error page, the error list. And so the way to look at the error resolutions and just what in general what the error is by going to our error list, which can be downloaded from the CalPADS footer page. So wherever you are in CalPADS, at the bottom, the footer, you'll see an error list, and you can download it from there, and that'll have the greatest and latest. And that's what you should be using right now while we update the user manual.
And we are targeting a fix for that shortly. So the user manual should be updated within the next week or so.
And then the last question from Mary Masters at 4 o'clock says, are home and hospital students exempt 9 through 12? From STAS, they are exempt.
You have to exempt them though.
So you still need to submit a STAS record for them, just have the exemption equal to Y, and then everything else would be blank.
There is also a link I shared on 403 for Flash 148. It's an old Flash on with regards to STAS concerning home and hospital, parent and paternity. All of those are in that Flash.
Thanks, guys. Okay, so with that, I think we're going to close out today's Q&A. Thank you, everyone, for helping out, for coming. We'll see you next Monday.